This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Of all the world's commonly eaten plant parts, this one may have the most interesting name. Or names plural. So very plural. Even if we restrict ourselves to English, this thing still has at least 3 internationally common names in widespread contemporary use. Eggplant in North American English, Aubergine in British English, and Brinjal in South Asian English. Those are the big 3 names, but there are innumerable less common localisms. Like here in the American South, it was historically referred to as Guinea squash. Guinea as in West Africa. It may indeed have come here via the transatlantic slave trade, but it could also have gotten here via the Spanish. This may be another case of Europeans or Euro-Americans naming anything exotic after Africa or India or the Turks who traded it to them. If they'd called it India squash, that may have been more accurate. Botanists think this thing probably originated in South Asia. It still grows wild across tropical Asia. It's a hot weather plant, and the part of it we eat is technically a berry, by the way. But let's get back to the big 3 names, and let's start with the one that I use, eggplant. People are quite understandably confused by eggplant. What animal lays an egg that looks like that? A dragon? Well, it'll all make sense to you as soon as I show you a different variety of eggplant that they also happen to be growing in this garden. It's over here. Yep, that's an eggplant too. And man, does it look like a goose egg or a big chicken egg, especially when it's pure white like that. When the white varieties get really ripe, they tend to turn yellow, but yeah, that right there is why people called it eggplant, or garden egg. Some people in West Africa and the Caribbean still call it garden egg. And eggplant remains the most common name in the US and Canada and Australia and New Zealand, though the first documented use of that name here in the Oxford English Dictionary is from a British source in 1767. The OED has no earlier reference to eggplant under any other name. That is the first documented mention of this thing in English. It was written by a Scottish author, and he used the word eggplant. Yet, for some reason, most contemporary Brits call it aubergine. Aubergine is a loan word from French that didn't cross the channel until the turn of the 19th century. At least that's when the OED first finds it in English. But by then, it would seem that the name eggplant had gotten established here in the English colonies, and we never let it go. Might this be linguistic evidence that the white eggplant was the first eggplant variety introduced to Britain, and by extension to the whole Anglophone world? Well, maybe. I can't find any botanical source to the contrary. Here's the Swiss-French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau writing in French about botany in the 18th century, and he actually drew a distinction between the white plante œuf, eggplant, and the purple melongena. Melongena was and remains today the scientific Latin name for eggplant, Solanum melongena. Rousseau also calls it the mad apple, pomme folle, a name based on the once common notion that eggplant is toxic and will drive you insane. But here's what's actually insane. Melongena, mad apple, aubergine, even brinjal, the contemporary Indian English name for this. All of those names might be the same name, meaning they might all have the same common ancestor. Nearly all of the non-eggplant type names, different as they sound, may come from the same place. And if this etymology is true, it is also incredibly ironic. So here it is, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, which seems to be drawing heavily from the Hobson-Jobson Dictionary, which is a source a lot of people have questions about, but I have not found any linguist disputing the broad strokes of what I'm about to tell you. Aubergine, the modern British English name, came from French, where it in turn came from the Catalan Spanish name Aubergine. Now, let me tell you something. From this point forward, I am totally guessing about the pronunciations. I have some idea of how these words would be pronounced today, but I have no idea how they would have been pronounced back then, so I'm just guessing. Bear with me. Aubergine, both the name and the vegetable, were brought to the Iberian Peninsula by Arabs. The Arabs called it Aubergine. To this day, that is a modern Arabic name for eggplant, and it evolved from an earlier Persian name that evolved from an earlier Sanskrit name that may have meant food that helps you not fart, and or that evolved from an ancient Dravidian name from South India. Regardless, if this is true, it means that all the names in the evolutionary chain that led to aubergine, they all have the same common ancestor from South Asia. Just as the plants probably have the same common ancestor from South Asia. The name and the plant come from the same place. That's not the ironic part. That part just makes sense. Here's where it gets ironic. Let's go back to the Arabic name, Aubergine. This is where the O sound in aubergine came from. It's a corruption of the Arabic definite article al, meaning the bandigen. As that Arabic name spread across North Africa and up into Spain and across Europe, some people dropped the al definite article. They dropped the. So that's how we get the modern Spanish word for eggplant, berenjena. Al berenjena, the berenjena, it just became berenjena. In Portuguese, it became berinjela. The Portuguese then exported their name, berinjela, all the way to their colonies in South Asia, where it evolved into brinjal. The modern Indian English name, brinjal. That's the ironic part. If we look at indigenous languages in South Asia, there are names for this that descend much more directly from the original, but if we look at brinjal, the modern Indian English word brinjal, it was born in India, it traveled all the way up through Persia, all the way across North Africa, changing all along the way up into Europe, and then it sailed all the way back home aboard a foreign conqueror's ship. Globalism. But wait, what explains melongena and that whole crazy apple business? Well, when the Arabic bandijan moved east across Europe, the B sound at the beginning became an M sound. Maybe because of how B's were pronounced in Greek, sort of an M and a P together. Anyway, that's how bandijan became melongena, or melanzana in Italian, which kind of sounds like mela insana, insane apple. That false cognate in Italian may have been what gave rise to the notion that eggplant will drive you insane. Eggplant won't drive you insane. It'll only drive you insane if you stay up way too late researching all the different freaking names for this thing. I'm just kidding. I'm not mad about it. I think it's a pretty great story about how interconnected the world is and has been for a long time. It's the kind of interconnected world that Squarespace can help you reach. Whatever you're trying to accomplish in this world, you should probably have a website for it. A place on the internet that's all your own, where you say, here I am, here's what I do, here's how you can reach me, here's what I can do for you. Squarespace can help you build an online store, a place where you can take appointments or reservations or donations, a place where you can post paywalled content. Anything you could need to do on the internet, Squarespace makes it insanely easy to accomplish. You just pick a template and follow the instructions. You don't even need your own photos anymore. They have stock art for you. Squarespace hosts the site for you when you're done making it. They can even register your domain name for you. You can get started for free, but when you're ready to pay to take your site live, remember your connection to me and use my promo code Ragusia. You'll save 10%. Thank you, Squarespace. And thank you, student gardeners of the University of Tennessee. Don't worry, I brought this one here from the grocery store. This isn't one of yours. Stop calling me names.